19. We're at episode 19 of the Human Hope Podcast. This is a miracle in and of itself. Every single week when I show up here, I'm like, did I do it again? I'm a podcaster. Nobody can say I'm not anymore because I'm 19 weeks into the madness and chaos and what I think is beauty of the Human Hope Podcast. Friends and familia, welcome to another episode with your host, Carlos Enrique Whitaker Guzman Archibald Cabello, or Los for short. Let's get to it. Last week, I came to you from Anchorage, Alaska, at the Leg Life Studio with my wife, Heather. That was a very popular podcast. Obviously, I'm starting to get it. Put Heather on the show, people show up. Now, I've talked to Heather's management, and she's not available for all the shows. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to do some of these alone. But then sometimes she shows up on them for like 30 seconds, like she did today. But I promise you this. If you love Heather, you're going to love this woman, our guest on today's show. Before we get to the guest, I want to let you know that I am overwhelmed with gratitude. I can't let more than 90 seconds go by, which is 90 seconds right now on this podcast, without saying thank you so much to you, to the Insta Familia. Now, if you don't follow me on Instagram, then you may not know what happened this week. After the show aired last Thursday, I went on a trip with an organization called Brooklyn to Alaska. And for the last 8 days, I have been documenting my journey in the wilderness, in the middle of no freaking where, Alaska, 8 hours north of Anchorage, in a town called McCarthy and Kennecott, 2 towns, where I went with a bunch of brown and black kids from Brooklyn that have never seen a river. Well, these had, but that's only because they went through this program, Brooklyn to Alaska. The program takes inner city kids, urban kids, and takes them to Alaska so they can find parts of their souls that never existed. And I was there with on the leadership track with kids that have actually been there 3 times already. So they were training these kids to be river guides and ice climbing guides, so that when the new group of kids showed up, which actually was yesterday, as far as recording this, that had never been to Alaska, they show up and there are river guides and ice guides that look like them, talk like them, sound like them, think like them. It is mind-blowing what this organization is doing. And just so happens that the Insta Familia, when I asked, hey, let's raise some money for them, like they needed $180,000 to build a bunkhouse and like a kitchen, basically to clear the land and build a place for base camp to operate. I still can't believe I'm going to say this. I said, hey guys, it's $180,000. I was thinking, and I almost said it, let's raise 50. Because I thought, you know what? I think my people can raise $50,000 for this thing. I think they can. But guess what? You, in 24 hours, raised $255,000. I don't even know what to say. $255 freaking $1,000? A normal year operating expense for the nonprofit Brooklyn to Alaska is a little over $100,000. That's for all the administration. That's for all the travel. That's for all the gear. That's for all the guides. That's for everything to run the program, because they do it on pennies. We raised enough money for this nonprofit to function for 2.5 years. And I'll tell you what, I haven't checked yet, but I guarantee you that a couple $10,000 or so more have been donated. $250,000 from people that I guarantee you vote on different sides of the aisle, from people that have different religions, from people that may not see eye to eye on things, but they do see eye to eye on the important things. And that's what I'm here to tell you, that humanity is not as broken as we think. That there is hope for humanity, because I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it. It can happen. And it did. $255,000, $250,000, 24 hours. We completely built the bunkhouse. We paid for every last nail and screw that's going to go in that bunkhouse, and for a lot more. They're going to be able to bring more kids now. I'm blown away. My mind's blown. So talk about giving you some hope at the beginning. Just my Instagram, right? Just the people that follow me. I didn't have anyone help me. Like it was just you guys. Now you guys helped me. You guys were sharing it with your friends, but like I didn't like pay for a Facebook ad for this. No, this was just people that saw me boots on the ground with an organization and said, "We're there. I am there to help," and you did it. It was amazing. Our whole trip to Alaska was amazing. I'm actually recording this from Worcester, Ohio. We flew on a red eye from Anchorage last night, and here we are. So I was actually in Alaska for 17 days, and I'm now in Ohio for 2 days. We picked up our brand new puppy. Rome is his name. Our last, almost cried. Our last dog, Pope, unexpectedly passed away 3 months ago. And our hearts have been, maybe 4 months ago, have been shattered in a million pieces. And we got our brand new baby, Bernese Mountain Dog, Rome. Pope, Rome. Yep. There's a little bit of tomato there. And he is beautiful. Go on to my Instagram, @LowSwit, if you want to see all the slow motion videos of him running around like a puppy and capturing all of our hearts. So we got a puppy, but guess what? The rest of my family and my wife who came home with me from Alaska, they go home tomorrow. I fly to San Diego for the next 5 days, and then I will be home. That will put me away for a grand total of 25 straight days from home. It's too much. That's too much. People ask me, how do you do it all the time? I'm like, barely. That's how I do it. I barely do it. I'm ready to be home for a little bit. But it has been a life-changing trip. Brooklyn to Alaska was amazing. I took my family. I talked a little bit about that last week. It was awesome. And thank you guys for coming along the journey with me. So let's get into today's show. I have no idea why I didn't think of this sooner. Now, let me be honest. I had something else planned. I always do. This is just me. Squirrel. And when we were sitting with LeeAnn, we're sitting with a friend of mine, LeeAnn Miller, here in Worcester, not Pennsylvania, Ohio. And she's in Amish country. That's where she lives. Her husband is former Amish. He looks Amish to me. He looks present Amish, but he's former Amish. And I know he's former Amish because he lives in one of the slickest, coolest houses that has electricity in Worcester. Now, we're in Amish country. There's lots of Amish around. He's former Amish. His entire family still lives here. And I'm like, LeeAnn, so, I don't know why I've never asked her, but I was like, so how'd you end up marrying an Amish guy? Were you Amish? She's like, no, I wasn't Amish. I was like, you weren't? She's like, no. I was, I met him at like 20, 21. I can't remember how old she was exactly. She is. I met him. Him and his dad came to fix a fireplace at my parents' house. And I saw him and I said, I'm going to marry that guy. I was like, oh, whatever. Cute story. So we kept having dinner and she's like, no. And then 28 days later, we were married. I was like, insert break, squealing sound. Excuse me? She said, yeah. I said, you're telling me you met this guy and married him in 28 days? She said, absolutely. I said, that's a love story. I said, how long have you guys been married? She goes, 30 years. I said, hey, you know what? Human Hope Podcast episode. What episode are we on? 19? I know I had something else planned, but I'm in your living room right now. And so guess what? I pulled out my phone. She's cooking us breakfast while she's telling me the story. I said, can you just tell us the story? So I started recording on my phone and I started thinking this is going to be horrible audio, but it actually turned out pretty good. And then I sat her down at the table during breakfast and started asking her, and friends, this conversation is the Human Hope Podcast conversation this week. You guys are going to be, if there's anything that ever tugs on your heartstrings, it's this. Because what I love about LeeAnn and Daryl's relationship, he's former Amish, but there's so much, people throw so much shade at the Amish, right? Because if we don't understand how and why they live like that, no electricity, horse and buggy, like what the heck? But here is this girl that's not Amish that falls in love with an Amish boy. 28 days later, they're married. His family dynamic with her, how they loved her, how she loved them back, what love actually looks like, why we're missing sacrifice in the love that we have today. Like There were all sorts of themes that came out of this conversation. And so honestly, I didn't know at the beginning if it would work. But by the time we cried, I don't know, 7 times during the conversation, this is a love story that is going to teach us all how to love better. And I'm not talking about, you can be single and learn how to love better listening to LeeAnn and Daryl's story. It's a love story like no other. So I figured, let's do it. So, friends and familia, I invited LeeAnn onto the show. She's going to tell you her story, and you are going to be moved to love even better. Sit back and enjoy our conversation with LeeAnn Miller, and let's learn what true love really looks like.
Okay, so I'm back from Alaska, and we're in our friend LeeAnn's kitchen. LeeAnn lives in Worcester. I said it right.
You said it right.
Ohio. And she's cooking all of his breakfast. And she was telling me about just her fascinating life. And I had something else planned for That Was Toast, the podcast this week. But I thought, no, like, who else would not want to hear about a young woman who fell in love with an Amish man, and that's all I know of the story. But I know there's so much more. It gets dicey. So I'm just going to ask her story. First of all, introduce yourself and tell the podcast listeners
Okay.
who you are, what you do, because a lot of people follow you on Instagram right now, not because you married an Amish man.
My name is LeeAnn Miller. I live in Amish country.
Yeah.
And I met, dated, and married my Amish-raised husband in 28 days.
What? Wait.
What?
You met and married him in 28 days?
28 days.
This is amazing. Okay.
28 days.
Okay.
We do not recommend this dating system.
She is actually handing my daughter breakfast, my 17-year-old daughter breakfast, as her boyfriend is in the house.
That's my new goal.
No goals, babe. You're already past the 28 days. Okay.
Whenever people talk about a short courtship,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, that was fast. And they're like,